let's talk about the wackiness of that Sunday night football game. And my perspective as an Eagle fan. So, I was asked by a friend of ours if I wanted to win or if I wanted the higher pick. And the choice was the sixth pick if we lost, the ninth pick if we won. If we won, the Giants are in the playoffs. Obviously, they were mad. Joe Judge was mad. But they also we actually, by them losing, everybody talks about how the Eagles lost, gave them 3 more spots ahead to go take a really good player, like one of these wide receivers that might drop a little bit, which has been speculated. But the Giants ended up getting 8 picks higher in the draft because of us, because they weren't going to get the 18th pick, assuming they lose, but they would have gotten, I think they have like the 10th pick or something like that. So, complain all you want, but to Giants fans, be better. You don't rely on another team to get you where you need to go. You guys were awful this year. Yes, we were worse than you, but you also didn't beat us in that last game of the year. So why don't you go out and win a game, and then we'll talk about that, huh? Joe Judge, you need to relax too. You're ridiculous, and I don't mind you as a coach, but be better, and then you don't have to rely on other teams. I do think this game is not a big deal. I don't think the benching of Hurts is a big deal. If this was at 4 p.m. or 2 our time or 11 or something like that, like this, no one's talking about this game. If you put Rams, what was it? The Rams Cardinals game on Sunday Night Football. Like no one's talking about it. And it's annoying. Yes, I am upset because I did want to win, because the idea of the statement saying, hey, even at our worst, Washington football team, you can't beat us. Like that statement in our home was a statement I liked, and I want to win. I want to win football games as a fan, but obviously I am okay getting a higher draft pick, especially if one of these wide receivers gets to us at 6, because them boys
if you get Jamar Chase,
that's what a lot of people
watch
think
out.
Who will fall.
I don't know if he'll fall that far.
Or Smith. But Doug Peterson said all week, Chris Collinsworth said it on the broadcast. He said, no, Doug told us we were going to see Sudfeld. And the biggest thing that he kept saying is, though, well, we expected it would be a blowout if we saw Sudfeld. That's what Chris's point of view was when he talked to Doug. He said, I assumed that would have been that if they're getting blown out or the game's not close, you bring in a Nate Sudfeld to either spark up your offense, see what he's got, not bring him in when it's a 1-score game. And I think a lot of people are really blowing this as the tanking. And I really, at the end of the day, don't think that was the Eagles' intention to tank to get 3 picks higher. I think they are more than happy to give up another pick to trade up to 6. There's been a lot of tweets I think are very funny, which I think are are likely if a player we don't like or if a player we really wanted ends up not falling to us at 6, is that we actually trade back to like 9 or 10, which would be funny. I think people are blowing everything out of proportion. I love Jason Kelce had an incredible statement today about everything, brought up how he was told, other captains were told on the team that at some point Sudfeld's coming into the game, and that when it happened, Kelce went up to Doug and said, you're putting Sud in? And Doug just said, yes, I told you we were going to roll with him at some point. I want to see what he can do. And Jason Kelce said the response to the team or from the team was, we can win with him. He's been here for 4 years. He has been on this team. We know him. We like him. We can win with him. Obviously, Sudfeld played very bad. And this has not been talked about enough. Jalen Hurts did not play very good. Yes, he had 2 touchdowns and he ran them in. Love the movement on the legs. But when you look at the game as a whole, he didn't play very good. He had missed throws. He was getting hit a lot, just like Wentz all year. Wide receivers weren't breaking on their routes. All of the same problems were still happening when we play any team. And I wasn't super shocked at everything that happened. I was shocked at the Sudfeld pull, because I didn't know it was happening. But I was not shocked to see some of the struggles. I mean, Hurts just didn't play great. And yes, I'll take those 2 rushing touchdowns to keep it a 1-score game and keep the kid in any day of the week over what ended up happening for wanting a win. But at the end of the day, we lost. The Giants need to calm down. If you were a fan of the Giants mad at the Eagles, I gave you Sunday is to be mad, maybe part of Monday. But now it's time to move on because you weren't very good and you would have gotten blown out this week by the Bucs. The Bucs would have slaughtered you. We'll get to our playoff talk here in a second, but this team needs a lot done. What's also really interesting is they kept saying all night that Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson were supposed to meet with our owner yesterday, and that was going to be the meeting to decide everything, and haven't heard a peep. Nothing. Which makes me think that they are both staying and going through the motions of what Jeffrey expects to change. So I think that could be a Howie Roseman being pulled off of main GM status and becoming more of a contract guy, which has been talked about a lot, or Dougie P being told, look, you have to bring in a legit offensive coordinator here. All speculation right now is actually leaning towards Carson Wentz staying with the team. The reports that came out about him having a fractured relationship was from ESPN, not from anybody close to the facility. He said he had sources. But everything I've seen, and a report came out later, beat writers close to the Eagles came out and said that everybody has denied that. His agents denied it, that it's not true. He did not talk to the media, which is telling because, if you are going to compete or you want to stay here or those reports are false, why not talk to the media and put your stamp on it? He's not the only vet who didn't talk to the media. Derek Barnett didn't talk to the media. A couple others didn't. So we need a lot of changes. I still don't know how. Howie Roseman, how do you just suddenly get Alshon Jeffrey and Malik Jackson to suddenly renegotiate their contract and open up? I think he opened up like $12.5 million in cap. How? I've been doing nothing but trashing you for the last 10 weeks, and then you pull out a wizard move. Why couldn't you do that last year? So we could go get somebody who's a decent, good lineman instead of an old man like JP, as much as I love him. Like, I just don't get it. I just don't get what the season is, because the second the season ends, all of a sudden Howie Roseman's like, all right, you got to renegotiate your deal. And they're like, okay.
Well, they probably realized after this year, they were like, oh, we're not going to be able to get the bag. We're going to get cut if we don't renegotiate, especially with the cap potentially going down.
The renegotiations opens up a better trade possibility for them. I hope we do not keep Alshon Jeffrey. Malik, I wouldn't mind keeping as a rotation guy, but because he's still a good baller behind Fletch and Hargrave. But Alshon needs to go. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm glad I'm not in the decision making. It was a weird move. I've talked a lot over the last couple of weeks about do they keep Wentz or not. I think Wentz has the higher ceiling still than Jalen Hurts, as much as I like Jalen Hurts. And I think fixing Wentz should be the priority. But if the relationship is actually fractured and you need to move off him, then a change of scenery is good for both teams. And we've got a good backup we can roll with to hope that he, is average or above. So we're in a weird position. I love our schedule next year when they announced who we're playing. Oh my gosh, playing bad teams. I love a good last place schedule. It's nice. It was immediately, I was like, I think we can beat these teams and go 10-6. Like immediately I thought that. I don't know if that'll happen. Probably won't, but lot to figure out. I hope we go get a stud in the draft. Jim Schwartz will not be returning, was the other kind of big piece of news to wrap this up. And I'm ready for that to move on. Jim Schwartz gets honestly, he might get almost all the credit for Brandon Graham's sudden explosion since he came here, as well as our D-line coach. But I want to bring in a real strong DC. I like a Dan Quinn idea. Gus Bradley, now that he's jobless, would be a good fit. I think there's a couple guys over that I've heard, like D'Amico Ryans is the linebackers coach in the 49ers who played for Philly. he is being looked at for DC jobs, and I would love a former player to come in and get that position. Offensive coordinator, I don't know what we're going to do, but we need to get a real one. I think a legit offensive coordinator, somebody who knows the game of football. I don't necessarily think they need to be like an older guy, but a younger guy I'm fine with. I just want somebody who knows the game very well and has maybe had a little bit of experience calling plays. But this change of scenery, I think, will be nice. I think this team does have the potential to get back on track within a year or two to be a good competitive team. Not saying a Super Bowl contender, but a competitive team. And I hope that's what happens. But that's kind of my little soapbox. You guys have any thoughts on the Eagles? Should we just jump right to your boys in the playoffs?
I mean, I just think people overreacted to it. Like, also, it's like it makes sense. Like, the Eagles would rather Washington get in the playoffs over the Giants. I feel like you guys have way more bad blood with the Giants. Yeah. Like, I feel people are really blowing it out of proportion, and you guys probably don't win that game, even if Jalen Hurts is in. To be honest, like
I really don't think so either. I don't think we
so.
were gonna win regardless. We had the better chance with Hurts.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been kind of cool to see Hurts try to execute a comeback and kind of
see what he could do.
A game that kind of matters to knock a team out of the playoffs, but I don't think it really matters. You guys are in a kind of an odd position with Carson Wentz, and I think, unless you really think he's going to get back to a borderline Pro Bowl type quarterback, I think it probably makes sense to move off of him as soon as possible, or else you're going to be really overpaying for multiple years to a quarterback who's below average or a backup, especially if Hurts earns the starting job. But so I think I could definitely see Wentz getting moved and you guys eat that salary for 1 year, because better eat it for 1 year than 2, I think. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Real quick before Kyle, you chime in, Chris Collinsworth on his podcast, because he's a stud, talked about how the conversations he had with Dougie, he alluded to it a little bit more on his show today, and said that everything when he asked alluded to Doug saying pretty consistently, we can fix Carson Wentz. Jalen Hurts is a backup quarterback for this team. So it's looking like Wentz will probably stay. I don't know about Ertz or those guys who I love so much. I don't know what's going to happen. Whatever happens, just do it the best way, end it the best way, and, clear the air, whether they stay or not. Just clearing the air is what's important for me. But Kyle, you have any thoughts?
I have a few. Firstly, with the Giants complaining, I'm with you guys. Like, don't try and be in a situation. Not necessarily to that extent, but like, just don't be in that situation to begin with, and play better, be better. Like, I don't think you're necessarily trash, but like, come on, like you shouldn't have to be in that position to begin with. So whatever, they can cry about it all they want. I agree with you about the Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts wasn't really playing that well. He had some all right throws, like some pretty solid ones, but he's still, like, taking a look at that game, like you can just see like the problems with the Eagles and their offense was still there, even with Jalen Hurts, especially in that game. But nonetheless, I thought it was weird that they wanted to pull Sudfeld, not only at the time that it happened, but also just in general. Like, I know that it's a guy that they like and he's been in the organization for a few years, but do they really think like he's something better than Wentz or something better than Jalen Hurts? Like, it's one thing. I know they didn't get a preseason, so they weren't able to really see like what they got with him this year, but also like, it just doesn't really make too much sense for me to try and, see what you got with a guy like that. Like, I'm sure he's nice, but like, I just don't see, it being worth it all that much. And I have a question for Alex about all this stuff with the Eagles and stuff being reported. Like, there's been so many times this season where, Rappaport or Schefter, whoever it is coming out and being like, oh, this is something that I heard from the Eagles locker room. It doesn't look very good. And then, it gets rolled around and gets blown out of proportions. And then, the Eagles media is like, no, that from what we're hearing, this is like the exact opposite. And then we hear from like ESPN guys or whatever being like, oh, right, yeah, that's not what we meant at all in the first place. Our bad. And it just seems to be this continued cycle where someone in the organization is leaking, whether it's the wrong information or whether it's information that's truthful to some degree, but it's not fully truthful at all. Like it feels like there's something going on within the organization that seems like they're leaking stuff when they should. And I don't know if it's like agents doing it or if it's someone the Eagles front office that's doing it. I don't know. Like, do you have any suspicions about that? Because I just have been seeing this trend throughout the whole year.
Well, it's been the last like 3 years. Like 2 years ago, there was that report that half the locker room loved Foles and hated Carson Wentz. There was a report that Carson Wentz was fighting with, acted like a stuck-up baby or something, I think is what the report said to our OC. There was this report that they would, he'd blow off all this stuff. And every single one of those reports were not from guys in Philadelphia who report on the team, who are beat writers and team reporters who are there at camp and do all this stuff. And then all those guys are coming out saying, look, I'm talking to Howie Roseman's number 2. I'm talking to Wentz's agent. I'm talking to this guy. I'm asking Wentz himself. And then these other ESPN reports or other reports are always just sources. They never really come out with it. So it could be Pat McAfee, shout out to the GOAT, talked about on his show once a while back that he said something along the lines of, look, in these reports, like sometimes guys will talk to the third janitor who says he saw a player throw a fit once without any context, says that to an ESPN reporter because he gets a little bit of cash in his pocket, and then that's the big headline. So I don't know who's talking. Maybe it's Howie Roseman, and it's true. Maybe it's Dougie P. I don't know. I'm going to follow the guys who are on the ground there, the beat writers, but I think people just I do think there's a little bit of just so much hate for us because we are so crazy as fans. Like when we won the Super Bowl, it was just we're the underdog, we're the best. We lost it. We're punching police horses. We're breaking gazebos, and everybody was like, "Okay, you guys are whack. Let's just roast you for the next like 4 years." You know what I mean?
Although I would be, I know this happens a lot when I'm like reading the beat writers for the Spurs and the Packers, where it's like sometimes beat writers for a city are just almost too loyal to their team, and they'll just say everything is good, and they'll be oh, nothing's wrong here, this team's awesome. And so there might be a little bit of that too, where some of the beat writers are like, no, we'll keep Wentz because the best option for us is Wentz is going to become a great player next year, and then everything's fine again if it becomes an elite quarterback. So let's just say that.
Yeah, there are a couple of beat writers in Philly though that drive me nuts. Like there's one beat writer who's the exact opposite. I feel like he trashes the Eagles at every turn. Like every turn, he trashes them, and sometimes I hate reading the beat writers because it's like, oh, there he is again. He's saying this guy sucks or this or that, and it's like I like that guy, or he's way caught up on somebody, but then he comes out and he'll say something like, "Look, all I have seen is Carson Wentz is a good guy," and it's like, all right, if the guy who hates the team but covers the team is saying it, I feel one way. But you're definitely right. There definitely could be some bias. I just try to pick through the sand here a little bit and just try to find what's true or what seems most likely. But any other thoughts on my Eagles, or should we just get to the playoffs?
Let's talk about the interesting teams now.